Hello there. This is Hello There.
Oh man, I don't know how we begin. This is Hello There. This is our robot. This is our Beetleweight robot, you would say, I guess, that we've built for Bugglebots. And it's a week before Bugglebots, and we've actually finished it. This is like combat ready. Not quite this configuration, but it's combat ready.
Well, this configuration is ready. It's
This on its own.
it's everything.
We couldn't use the mini bot in this configuration, but that's fine. Which is cool. So when we were building Split Decision, we were still panicking about weight on the morning we were going to RoboNerd. Whereas this one, we are confident a week before, which is nice, I think.
Although we have done a lot of weight removal already, we sort of preemptively took a lot of material out of it. And we're now in a nice comfortable position of being underweight and thinking what we can re-add.
Yeah, which is a better place to be. So what we thought we'd do is, rather than try and explain to you this robot in audio-only form, we thought we'd turn the camera on so you can see us.
And we're regretting every part of that decision.
And it is weird. But yeah, we'll do it. So this is... Should we start with...
We'll start with the main robot. We'll get rid of distracting things for a minute.
Start with the main robot, he says, gesturing to Split Decision.
The best part.
This is Hello There. It is an axe.
It has an axe.
It has an axe. It has an axe which has got less power than we hoped it would have.
This is pretty much the technically inactive weapon, active weapon that we've always spoken so much about.
Yeah, not that we even need it this time.
No, but it was important to us to build something with a weapon.
What this is a waste of weight.
Yeah. Basically, this is just a commitment to an idea and an aesthetic.
Ah, dear.
So the whole thing has been designed primarily to be robust and reliable, which are the scariest words we could possibly put out there. So the whole thing is HDPE, apart from the axe, which is aluminium. We've got two very thick frame rails running the entire length of the robot. They're about 20mm thick, except some areas that we pocketed out. Everything else is 10mm, so it's designed to stay together. We've got a nice big defensive wedge on the front in the main configuration, and some other options that we'll get into. We've got four-wheel drive. We don't know how good the four-wheel drive is yet. We haven't really been able to give it a proper run around and test of how well it pushes.
No, but it works. Like it's controllable. It's reasonably quick, I would say. Like it moves with a quickness now that it's got grip to it.
Yeah, and the wheels have been a whole ordeal in their own, but they do give us really good grip.
Yeah.
It's I don't like calling it four-wheel drive in a way.
It's got a four-wheel drive in the same way that any other four-wheel drive robot has it.
Well, no, in that it's two motors powering four wheels via pulleys.
Yeah, which is not an uncommon thing to do.
To me, it seems like there's a distinction there. I don't want to get into definitions.
This is a four-wheel drive robot with two motors.
There are four driven wheels. The pushing power it has, we're really just going to have to see when we get into a fight with something. The four-wheel drive, I think, if anything, has given us much better control than two-wheel drive would have.
Yeah.
And it's given us a kind of plantedness that certainly seems to make it more fun to drive. I don't know if it makes it more effective to drive as well.
I think it is, yeah. It's certainly more effective than that was.
This is a hot mess. And that's why we love it.
Hot mess made of hot glue.
Internally, it's all pretty simple, but with one massive problem that we decided to put in it, which is the weapon system, which has kind of dictated the internal design of everything. So this hammer, rather than being powered by a motor, for example, like most people would do, we've decided to make powered by a servo. Servos... Thanks. It's entirely true. It's entirely fair. The reason we went with the servo is that servos are much easier to control than a motor would be. If we were trying to use a motor, we'd either be putting a lot of stress on an ESC, or we'd be sort of having to do... I mean, you were thinking about different ways of using microcontrollers and things.
The main thing for me is that you can do a servo entirely from what the transmitter sends, because you can send positions through the throttle channel on a transmitter, and it just works, and there's no... Beyond the receiver, there's nothing clever going on in there for the position of the axe. I just waggle the stick and the axe moves correspondingly. Whereas using any other system that we came up with would require slightly more brains in here, because it would have to track its own position of where the axe was to not do anything stupid, like, and you need like, end switches and...
At one point we were thinking about using stepper motors and a spring-based system, which...
would have been hilarious.
Having had the experience of just trying to build this thing would have been ambition way beyond what we are capable of in a first build.
Yeah, it would have ended our robot, I think, if we'd stuck with that idea.
Just building the frame and getting everything straight has been a challenge, so if we'd done that, that would have been far too much. So we've ended up with a servo powering it. Unfortunately, servos are very slow, so we've had to do a really weird system of gearing where we've basically got a drive pulley off of the servo and a smaller pulley driving the axe, and literally fishing line connecting them.
Can I just point out that what you've done is you turned it in such a way that the axe hides the thing that you're talking about?
I realised that halfway through, and
Let's do this. Here we have a big wheel on the servo, and it drives this little pulley. So the servo moves about 60 degrees, is it?
Yeah, it's a roughly 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, so the servo goes about 60 degrees, which brings the axe through approximately 180.
So it has got a bit of pace to it. It's just enough torque for us to self-right. When we tested it before, it was self-righting happily on a higher voltage, so we're going to try and do something to step that up before competition. In which case it will self-right reliably. As is, it does do it.
Just.
That's the box that we've managed to tick off. The hammer, as heavy as it looks, I think, as I remember, this was 86 grams.
It barely weighs anything. I mean, the defining characteristic of this hammer is if you imagine how thin the walls of an aluminium can are, that you might get Coke or Dr. Pepper in, for example.
0.1 millimetre, that is.
Barely anything. We can just about dent that with this.
Yes. What it hopefully will be is a quite persistent weapon, but the linkage is quite frail. It's slipping off a lot. We're thinking about ways that we can stop it doing that, but it might just be an inherent flaw of the way that we've done it. It might not be something we can really fix.
That's a flawless design.
It's a very interesting design that we've learned a lot from.
It's been really interesting doing all of this because I have a lot more respect for the people that build good robots now. Like, I've always been like, that is, building a robot is not easy, but this is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's taken us so much longer than we thought it would. Or it's certainly taken us longer than I thought it would to get to this point. I thought we'd be here a few weeks ago, but...
I've been trying to work out how long we've spent on this. When did we start? We started a good 3 months ago.
Yeah, this has been the defining activity in my year so far.
Yeah, this has been 2019. We have got together at least one day basically every weekend. The weekends where we've done 2 days kind of average out for the ones where we didn't do anything. We've done a lot of midweek sort of evening builds. There's well over 100 hours of human effort in this robot.
And this is what we've got to show for it.
I really want to feel good about that number, but...
No, it's fun because we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot on the way. Like on the way, we've a lot of time was sunk into trying to make our own wheels, which is hard. We don't have the tools for it, and we're fighting our own tools and experience the whole way. Like if someone who knows what they're doing could build this in a weekend easy.
Oh yeah, and they could probably build it better. I think quite a lot of time as well went into things like prototyping.
Yeah.
Where we had systems, we weren't sure if they would work. Even if we knew how they would work, we weren't sure that we knew the best way to do them. So rather than sort of investing in materials to waste, we invested in time to spend on that instead.
Time to waste instead.
Yeah. No, the learning curve has been huge. We've spent a lot of time over the course of building it talking purely about what we would change if we did it again. And I think the answer is pretty much all of it.
I think if we did this again, I think we'd end up with something that's overall the same shape as this. I love everything about the way this looks, but I think the body of a new one would be smaller. I think the armour would be less thick than it is, because it's a nightmare.
Well, the armour would be better balanced, I think, because we've got 10 to 20 mil of HDPE everywhere, top and bottom of 3 mil ABS. If we come up against an actual hammer, we're in trouble.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's all refinements, but I think it would still look like, it would still recognisably be, hello there.
And I'm proud of us for having got it made. in time, underweight. Delighted that we've just been accepted to compete as well.
Oh,
Because that was a real
mind
surprise to me.
blowing. Yeah, that's crazy.
And now we're going to get to go and not only show off what we've made, which we're very excited to do, we get to really find out all the things we don't know on another side of it, in terms of how we're going to maintain this thing, how are we going to, which bin do we put it in at the end of the weekend?
Yeah. Oh man, we need to do some proper 3D scans, because we're never going to be able to do this again. We need to preserve it digitally.
I feel like we should have preserved it digitally before we painted it.
Oh dear, the paint certainly adds something. Should we talk about the other configurations? So
Yes.
We expect this will probably be one of the main things. The only other one we might use instead would be to have a more vertical thing on the front than this.
Yeah, so we've got our big... We should use the proper names.
Sorry, yeah, so what this is...
This is Wedge Antilles.
Wedge Antilles.
Here we have Darth Wall. And then we have our aluminium Forkins configuration.
Oh,
So
dear.
silly.
It is silly. You've got to
So-
get the memes in there.
When this all began, these were three very different setups. I think over time, the wedge has become more like the wall.
Yeah.
So the idea was that this would be an angled wedge for kind of deflecting higher mounted horizontal spinners. The wall was mainly intended for any verticals that don't have good feeder wedges and undercutters. And then the forks, which we get to run split decision with, which is the most important thing,
Yeah.
are for basically anything that isn't a spinner.
Anything that isn't a threat to us.
Yeah, anything where we're not worried about getting broken too badly.
If we're fighting you and we're using split decision, it's because we don't consider you a threat.
Priority number one, I mean, with that said, priority number one is to get split decision in a fight.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't have to be a competitive fight, but split decision deserves a glorious death.
Yes.
And if it has to take hello there with it, price worth paying.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think now we've built the wedge and we've worked with it with the wedge on the most, we like how it looks.
It's the most important thing. Aesthetics above all else.
And to be honest, it does do the job of Darth Wall in terms of being defensive. And even now, really, in terms of ground clearance, it's probably no worse than the forks. This is the configuration that can take on basically anything. And then the forks let us have fun with split decision in the arena. Which is why we haven't even got this painted yet. We're not sure it's really going to come in useful.
Yeah, we'll see. What else is there?
Expectations, I suppose?
Expectations. So we're not anticipating winning any fights, I don't think. I think that's fair to say. We're anticipating having a lot of fun, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be...
Absolutely.
We're going to have a whale of a time doing this. But yeah, I don't think we're going to win. But we are going to enter this in every fight we are able to. We will volunteer this robot.
Yeah.
If there's any whiteboards, any brawls, anything like that, we will
Yeah.
we will be there if we're allowed to.
I am going in with the expectation that this robot will be a dead loss by the end.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think I'd almost be disappointed if it wasn't. It'd be nice to get some of the good electronics back.
Yeah.
But this frame does not need to live beyond this weekend.
I don't know whether or not it will. I'm still going to keep going backwards and forwards because it is quite thick, and I think the core of this, because I think our lose condition is that we're going to lose the wheels and then be counted out for immobility.
Yeah.
And so unless someone's being vindictive, I don't think we're going to take. I'm not sure if we're going to take irreparable damage to the frame. I think the frame will hold together.
I think the biggest issue we're going to have is if anyone goes through our top or bottom and catches a battery.
Yeah.
That's the disaster condition for
But
us.
I still don't think that's unique to us. I think
Oh, no.
a lot of robots have comparatively thin top and bottom armour. So, yeah.
For me, this isn't an expectation, but kind of the dream is that we go against one of the big horizontals and survive an impressive amount of time.
Yeah.
The aim isn't even to win a fight, it is to survive against the odds. Because that's kind of what Split Decision did when we first ran it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the big brother, big sister, whichever we're going with here.
Brother.
Okay, brother.
Okay, I'm happy to go with brother.
You don't like it when I gender the robots.
I mean, I'd rather it was a genderless blob, but like if you want to gender it, then
It's happened now.
it's happened. Now.
It's,
We've done
it's
it.
canon.
I'm cutting this whole segment. Right, so this is inside the robot. Don't go putting
Pointy stick.
putting pointy metal things in it.
I have a better pointy stick.
Well, I don't know what to show. Right, so the speed controllers for the motors at the front, right at the front here, and then just behind those are the motors. So it's the front wheels that are directly driven by the motors, and then these belts take it to the back wheels. This is the servo that powers the weapon. Sorry, the weapon. Underneath that is the receiver. That's where everything goes to behind there. Over on this side, in this big gaping grit hole here, is where the battery will go. Our link is over here, and there's a bit of like power distribution-y stuff there.
I hate to say it, but I think the biggest headache in this whole robot has been the link.
The link has been a headache. That is a hard thing to get right. We'll talk about that in a sec when we move the camera back, maybe. Or do you want to talk about it now?
I don't mind.
I don't want to say.
I think a whole conversation about what the worst case scenario is would be interesting. Things we don't want to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. What else is there to say about the inside of it?
Not a great deal, apart from all of the lovely mounting. Do we want to talk more about the fishing line?
Yeah, so you can probably, I mean, let me take these blocks out the back and we'll spin it around so you can sort of see it a bit better. So the linkage between the servo and this pulley up here is a fishing line. We tried a bunch of materials. We did have the same kind of like O-ring as this. And that's funny, like that gives the axe a really pleasing motion because it properly accelerates to the ends, and that's great. But if you do that, then these O-rings just stretch and take up all the slack when you try and self-right. And we also tried a couple of different types of wire, and they just stretch and don't come back. So we've got a fishing line, which is not as tall as we'd like it to be, and that is our best at the moment.
Yeah, it's the flimsiest looking thing that we've used, but it is by far the strongest. This is braided fishing line. I think it's got a breaking strain of roughly 35 kilos.
I don't know. You bought it.
I was trying to convert £70 to kilos in my head, but then I realised that you won't be able to help.
I don't know what a pound is, so I've got no idea.
It's £70 breaking strain. And the important thing with it is that it just doesn't stretch.
Yeah.
Whereas all the sort of metal wires and things that we ended up trying, they all stretch, and once that happens, it is completely dead.
Yeah.
What do we definitely not want to happen this weekend?
I don't want to face Halo.
By the time this goes out, people will know who's competing, won't they? That'll be fine. Obviously, we're in a position right now where we know who's competing, but not everyone has confirmed themselves.
We know everything. Apart from what was going to happen this weekend. What do we not want to happen?
I want to face Halo.
I don't want this to be torn to shreds.
I don't want it to be torn to shreds in its first fight.
No. I was just noticed. I think the front wheels are coming away again. I think the grubs have let off slightly.
That's fine. They'll hit the step and they won't come any further. I mean, I'm trying to get that off and I can't. Daedalus, however, would be able to. I don't want to lose by losing a link.
Don't want to lose by losing the link.
And I think we probably will. I don't want to lose by being unable to self-right. And I think we probably will.
Yeah.
Just because of all the things we've said about hammers that can't self-right, and we've built a hammer that struggles with self-righting.
It's hard. That's the thing. I think hammers are harder than I thought they were to build.
Yeah, definitely. If we built this so it was just invertible, I think we'd have been fine, but we then wouldn't have been able to fit everything inside.
No, well, I mean, a good engineer could.
You're right, I could have.
Oh, thanks.
I designed it so everything fitted inside, and we just went, that's probably ambitious.
I just don't want it to be completely annihilated. I want it to survive more fights than it needs to.
That's fair.
Because how many? Is it guaranteed 2?
We're guaranteed 2 fights.
Well, I reckon even if we don't get more than 2 fights, even if at the end of the day we apply or like enter ourselves for others and we don't get in for whatever reason, as long as the thing's capable of doing more than 2, I think I'll be happy. I wouldn't like it to be wrecked after its first or second fight. And also, this is going to win. I don't want people to hate it.
I don't want it to be boring. I definitely don't want this to be a boring robot. It's already very attention-seeking. It's a robot you're going to notice.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that could happen, like as I was kind of saying before, is that we lose in boring, stupid ways that ruin a fight.
Yeah.
If this goes in and loses every fight, that is fine as long as it was entertaining, because one of the things that's different about being in Bugglebots compared to just taking this off to any other competition is that I feel a responsibility to entertain. And I think any anxiety I have revolves around that.
Yeah. I think it'll be entertaining.
I think we'll do something special.
Yeah.
Also, I think we'll be part of something special.
Oh, something special. I think. Yeah. I'm still really worried about the editors and me.
You're captain now, so you've got responsibilities.
Oh yeah, I'm the captain now.
Look at you.
Well, because I don't know. This doesn't come across too much on the podcast, I don't think. But I'm quite a sweary person, especially when I'm excited, and I think I will be very excited when we're fighting. Bugglebots was clean, wasn't it? And I expect it will be clean this time. And I'm also kind of expecting there will be children in the audience and stuff, and I don't want to. I'm just going to be just yelling the worst stuff at the top of my voice, and I can shout. Like my voice carries if I'm excited, and yeah, that's what I'm worried about that more than anything. I think
It's interesting because obviously I know how sweary you are. I don't think I've ever seen you excited.
you know. I think
The closest thing to excited I think I've seen you was when we were at Robo Nerd with Split Decision.
Yeah.
And none of those qualities came out at that point.
But then, okay,
But
maybe.
it wasn't. We weren't competitive there.
No.
We're not.
But this is really competitive.
This is not a step up in competitiveness. But I think this was always a silly machine,
Yeah.
and it succeeded in being funny. And I think when people look at it, they don't expect it to be any good.
No.
You look at this, and from a distance, through slightly frosted glass, it looks pretty competently made.
Just squint.
So I think, I don't know, success is an option with this. That's the hard thing.
It'll be interesting.
And that's where I think you might get quite competitive.
One of the driving forces when we started building this is so we, way back in January or whatever, we sat down and had a discussion. Should we enter Bugglebots? If we do, what should we take? And the decision there was, are we going to build a bigger version of Split Decision, or are we going to build something else? And it was, I campaigned for something else. And I campaigned for something that was more competitive than Split Decision. I'm not sure if we've... I think we
This is where we are.
This is more competitive than Split Decision,
Oh, yeah.
because it is drivable and it's got... I mean, so the goal was a reasonably competent drive system that, if all else fails, can push someone else around a little bit. And I think we've achieved that.
Yeah.
So I think it's because this is sort of... It's not meant to be the world's most competitive robot. This is clearly not a try-hard robot. But it's... Because it's not a vertical spinner, you know?
Yeah.
So therefore, I think we get a bit of leeway with it. But like, I think it's more competitive enough for me to sort of take it a bit more seriously. When like, I want to win a fight. I don't think we will, but I really want to win a fight.
Yeah. I'm glad you're driving.
Is that so?
Because I feel no responsibility
Yeah.
if it doesn't win anything. With Split Decision, you take it into a fight, and
And it will pit itself whether you like it or
you
not.
are a passenger. You can have the controller in your hand, but you are a passenger with this thing. Whereas I think with Hello There, for you when you're driving, you're going to feel like you can influence a fight.
Yeah.
And I think that does create more pressure just that you put on yourself. And I would be exactly the same if I were driving it.
Yeah. We're going to learn I'm going to learn exactly how hard driving is. I think it's going to be really, really hard.
It's easy enough to drive it around the kitchen and not hit things, but when you're in a fight situation of having to think about, where do I want to be at this exact moment? What is my opponent going to do? Where am I going to want to be in 3 seconds' time? That, I think, is going to be the learning curve there.
Oh, yeah.
It isn't about driving, it's about driving in a fight.
Yeah. I'm going to pit myself, I think. If the pit gets opened, I think there is a high chance that I will be the one that puts this robot in there.
I think if there's one promise we can make right now, we will not go straight for the pit.
We will not Right. There's one condition in which we will intentionally open the pit, but in general, we will not intentionally open the pit. There's every chance that I will drive into the button because I'm rubbish, but we will not intend to open the pit unless our opponent is near the pit and split decisions in the arena.
Sneaky boy.
In which case, we were going to try and use split decision to open the pit.
And we can say that now because no one's going to hear that before.
No one will know.
That is the super secret strategy of split decision.
That is it.
Everyone's going to look at it and think that won't influence a fight. He'll be there, hanging out by that pit button.
We will try. We will do our best. We could just go on for ages about this, couldn't we?
We could, yeah, and I'm quite glad that we could because this is, 3 months of passion about this project finally going into something communicative.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you at Bugglebots.